All right, guys, what's up? Welcome in. Super Bowl Sunday is set. Chiefs and Niners. Can't wait for that matchup. I think this is going to be the more exciting matchup that we could have gotten this weekend. Both teams, it's a rematch of their Super Bowl 4 years ago. Both teams have pretty similar rosters. Obviously the Chiefs don't have Tyreek Hill, and Jimmy G is no longer starting for the Niners or any NFL team. You got Brock Purdy, who I think is a massive upgrade. So we'll dive into that at the end of the video. And before we do that, we'll touch on the Chiefs and Ravens and Lions and Niners. So before we get started, like and subscribe. Help me grow this channel. Comment down below your thoughts on each of the games and on the upcoming Super Bowl. And yeah, let's dive into it. So we're going to start off with the Chiefs and Ravens. And like I've been telling my friends and family, I would be surprised if the Chiefs won, but I wouldn't have been shocked. And the Chiefs came in and did exactly what they've been doing since Patrick Mahomes took over. Came out against the best defense in the league by far and owned them. I mean, they dominated the trenches. Pacheco was just destroying the Ravens, and Mahomes was as accurate as you can be. Travis Kelce looks like prime Travis Kelce in the playoffs. That's been like a fun little development. He must have been saving a little in the tank, I'm guessing. Maybe this is his last ride, so he's giving it every ounce that he has towards helping the Chiefs go on one more Super Bowl run with him. And, yeah, not shocked. I mean, Patrick Mahomes solidified himself. I think we kind of forgot throughout the year how good he's been the past 6 years because of he had an off season, and a lot of that had to do with the lack of continuity on offense. Travis Kelce aging a little bit, and obviously the receivers dropping passes. He didn't look like that typical dominant MVP that we've seen over the course of his career. But once we got to the playoffs, it became real evident in that first game against the Dolphins that he was here to play. And, negative degrees. He was throwing the ball all over the field, 41 passes. Looked really freaking good. Key scrambles when he needed to. And then he carried that over to the Bills game where threw it only 23 times, but was incredibly efficient. And especially on the ground with some key scrambles that, put the Chiefs in good position. And that carried over into today against the Ravens. He came out and was just pinpoint. On that first drive, that throw to Kelce over the middle, that looks so easy to do, but when you got a helmet and pads on, that's a tough catch and an absolute dart of a throw. And then that back shoulder was just something out of the encyclopedia of how to throw a back shoulder fade. That is two guys that have an infinite amount of chemistry with each other, that are both Hall of Famers, doing what they do. And Kelce obviously makes a great catch on Kyle Hamilton, who is no scrub. And it kind of just felt like from there, like, I think this is the Chiefs' game to win. And, if you're a Ravens fan, you got to be incredibly disappointed. You had Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, T. Sizzle come out. The first AFC championship at Baltimore, which is very shocking considering how dominant they've been as a franchise for past 20 years. They've had their up and down years, but they've been kind of a constant over the course of my lifetime as a very good team. And so, the real thing that seemed to me to make itself clear, and obviously I know that Lamar had a better season and there was no runaway MVP candidate. There's no doubt that Patrick Mahomes is the MVP of the NFL. He is the best player on the field every time he steps on it. And there's nobody close, quite frankly. I mean, you saw him just carve him up throughout the game. And the first half, they go up 17-7. And you thought, Chiefs might run away with this thing, especially with them getting the ball after halftime. You thought, shit, this is going to be 24-7, and the Ravens, They have a lot of explosive weapons, but they're not a typically rally from behind team. And yeah, it is just so clear that if you had to start a franchise right now, you would 1,000% take Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback. It's so fun to watch him play. I mean, Tom Brady obviously is the GOAT, and it's going to be hard to surpass him. I mean, he's got 7 Super Bowls, and he's just known to make every play when you absolutely need it. I think that something that doesn't get talked about enough with Brady was that you didn't see them in a ton of games where the opposing team had a chance to go down the field and win it. They just shut the door on them before they even got the chance. And you saw that today on that third down and 8, a little less than a minute to go. Threw a deep pass to MVS, who, as I was talking about this week, the Chiefs have Kelce and they have Rice, and that's their 2 main weapons outside of Pacheco in the run game. Somebody else needed to step up and make a play. And he did last week with a couple nice catches, down the sideline and over the middle. And in probably the biggest moment of the game, he came up with a nice falling back catch on a deep, about 40-yard pass play. Sealed the game off, sent him to the Super Bowl. So I would expect him to kind of be a sneaky X factor in the game against the Niners because they need that third weapon. And he delivered. And so the Chiefs right now, you got to love how they're playing. This week I kind of thought, are the Chiefs a legitimate defensive force? And you kind of had that question. Obviously you think Baltimore, you're like, yeah, their defense has been lights out. Niners the past couple years, defense lights out. That doesn't always come to mind when you think about the Chiefs because they've been so offensively dominant. Today showed how freaking good they are. I mean, Trent McDuffie, Chris Jones, I mean even Drew Tranquill and what's his name, Nick Bolton. Those 2 linebackers, man, they fly around the middle of that field. This team has kind of flown under the radar. I know we talked about the Chiefs' defense, how good they are, but I didn't know they were this good. I mean, holy cow. I mean, you held the future MVP of this season, Lamar Jackson, to 10 freaking points. That's incredible. And touching on Lamar, he did not look good today. I thought that the play calling and decision making of Lamar Jackson and their OC just seemed questionable. They did not seem in sync. Lamar obviously throughout his career has become a little more conscious of a scrambler. I felt like today, dude, your season, this is win or go home. Super Bowl is 1 victory away. Take more chances on the ground. Give everything you got. You saw it earlier in the game when Patrick Mahomes, dove head first and took a hit from the Ravens. You saw a guy that's I'm not playing to not get injured. This isn't week 5. Dude, the Super Bowl is in 2 weeks. I have to get this first down. And on a couple key third downs and short yardage situations, you felt like Lamar could have just taken a quick alley because, the Chiefs did do a great job of plugging up the gaps during the pass rush situations. But, I mean, nobody's catching Lamar. Every time he scrambles, it seems like he gets 10 yards. And I would have loved to see him just use the best threat that he has, which is his legs and his elusiveness, to pick up, a 3rd and 2 in your own territory. All you need is 2 yards. Just get 3. And I'll put all my money on Lamar Jackson. If you're telling me it's 3rd and 2, that he's going to get it, I mean, he probably has gotten it over 100 times this season. So Lamar Jackson, I wouldn't say he choked because Chiefs defense obviously, is incredible. And it was raining, no excuses. You're in the AFC Championship game, you got to make plays. But it just felt like he didn't play to his potential, and obviously he didn't. And now that question still lingers. Like, can he get them over the hump? Obviously, he has the talent to. And this Ravens team isn't going anywhere. But we all know how hard it is to get back to the championship game, let alone the playoffs, especially, divisional championship and obviously the Super Bowl. How many times do we see a team have a dominant year and then not get back there? You have to cash in your ticket when you have the opportunity. And we saw it with the Eagles last year. I mean, the Eagles last year looked like they were going to be a force for the next 5 years. And, who knows? I imagine that they will, pick it up next year again and shake off this terrible year they had. Who's to say that the Ravens don't have the same experience? Lamar gets hurt, or, some of their defensive guys don't play to their full potential. Odell Beckham's not going to be there. And no, he wasn't a huge threat this year, but he's still somebody you have to pay attention to. So, incredibly tough loss for the Ravens at home. Incredible atmosphere. It's got to suck. It really does. Your defense has played lights out all year, and they did in the second half. Both defenses, the Chiefs the whole game, were incredibly dominant. But especially in that second half, like, the freaking Ravens stepped up, and they gave their offense every opportunity. And ultimately what this game came down to was the 2 turnovers. The great strip sack by the Chiefs. You can't really put that on Lamar. Like, you can say, well, you got to have better pocket awareness. It's like, that's more just a good play by the defense. And then the play with Zay Flowers, obviously, yeah, you have the taunting call, which I think is a dumb rule. You have unsportsmanlike conduct. If something gets carried away, just use those. Like, why is taunting a thing? You make a big play and somebody tackles you from behind and you want to spin the ball at them, I'm all for it. You posterize somebody in the NBA, like, yeah, talk your shit. And so, I mean, that's a whole different topic, but that moves them back 15 yards once they get to the 10. But then he makes a great play to get them back up to the 10. And then, he catches that drag route and dives for the end zone. And L'Jarius Sneed just makes an incredible play, like probably a top 5 play of their season. And I don't think you can put that on Zay Flowers. Like, he's had an incredible rookie season. I would imagine that he continues to develop and become a legit Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle type player. He's trying to make a play for his team. And how many times do we see a receiver going towards the pylon or towards the goal line extend? It never gets punched out, let alone 2 inches from the goal line. So you got to make a play. And, the Chiefs just made a better one. And so Chiefs pull it off, man. Hell of a game. They're hot. They're super hot right now. And how many times do we see it? A team picks it up, especially a championship caliber team that's been there, done that with the Chiefs. You get hot at the right time. The Super Bowl is yours for the taking. It's all about who plays the best football in January. If you get to the playoffs, that's all that freaking matters. It's a new season when you get to the playoffs. And the Chiefs have treated it just as that. And they have played lights out football. Their defense is humming. Patrick Mahomes looks, like the MVP he was last year. And Travis Kelce looks like the Hall of Famer he has been his whole career. So I think it's going to be really hard for the Chiefs to lose. I don't see with how they're playing, how either the Lions or the Niners would have matched up. I think the Chiefs would have been the favorites either way. And so, yeah, congrats to the Chiefs. Great game. They showed that they are legit. And, great season for the Ravens, but ultimately feels like a disappointment because of, you won 15 games and you had home field advantage in the championship game. It's kind of a letdown. So, let's wrap that game up. And, yeah, let's dive in to the Lions and Niners. And if you're a Lions fan, you got to be sick to your stomach. I mean, I'm not a Lions fan. Like, I enjoy watching the Lions and I root for them. I was losing it, man. Like, you go up 24-7 against a team that is terrible at coming back from behind, and you choke the game away. I mean, it's one thing if they outplayed you in the second half and ended up coming back. They choked that game away. You're on a 4th and 2 in the Niners territory to go up after the Niners only kicked a field goal coming out of half. You had a chance to go up 31-10 if you got a touchdown, and you go for it on 4th and 2, which I'm all for. Go for it. You've been doing it all year, especially on the 4th down later in the fourth quarter as well. It's like, go for it, man. That's what's gotten you here. Stick with it. I rather die on my sword than live by hiding under my shield. And I'm glad that they did stay true to that. But Jared Goff does not do good under pressure. When he stepped up, catch up a ball, no doubt, but you drop that 4th and 2. Then the Niners throw a deep pass to Brandon Ayuk, and it freaking bounces right off of the guy's face mask into Brandon Ayuk's hand down at the 4. Niners score. Get the ball back. Lions, first play, fumble it. Niners score again. Now it's tied. Big 3rd and 8. You got to make a play. Go get the lead. Perfect pass. Drops it. Then they had a couple other miscues where it's like another 4th down. They didn't get it done. And so it's one thing to lose because you got outplayed. It's another way to, it hurts more when you just blow the game, which is exactly what they did. That game was theirs for the taking. They were the more physical team in the first half. They came out, they go up 24-7, and they're an incredible play from ahead team with a 2-headed running back monster that is the best in the league. And you lose. So, incredibly disappointing. Ultimately, a great season for Detroit. This feels like it taints it a little bit because you're right there. You're one half away from going to the Super Bowl against a team that you beat in the first game of the year, and you're playing better than you have the whole season. So, I think what gets hidden in all this is that the freaking Niners came from behind and they won. Like, that's a big deal because that's been their Achilles heel really since Shanahan took over. Is they struggle when they get behind. They're not a traditional just drop back and air it out team. They like to pound the ball and use play action off of that. And so, some developing thoughts in this game is the Brock Purdy slander needs to stop. He's a top 10 QB. Last year everybody loved him. Like, what a story, Mr. Irrelevant, and gets knocked out of the NFC Championship game. It's like all of a sudden this year it's like, well, is he really that good? Can he take him to the Super Bowl? Can he win the big games? And it's like, dude had like 112 passer rating with 30-plus touchdowns. Like, yeah, he's a freaking good quarterback. I don't understand. Yeah, he's not Mahomes. He's not Allen. He's not Lamar. Like, yeah, newsflash, nobody is. Nobody is Mahomes. He's the best quarterback in the league, and he's one of the greatest we've ever seen. You have to love what Brock Purdy has done. It's an ultimate, underdog story, which is incredibly fun to watch. And in that second half, man, he was throwing some darts. He wasn't rattled. Down 24-7. I mean, that's a huge, huge deficit for only 30 minutes of football against a team that is incredibly physical. And he just hung in the pocket, and he took some big hits, man. But he delivered the ball over the middle of the field, and his playmakers made plays. So I think it all needs to stop. That Brock Purdy isn't capable of this or capable of that. He's in the freaking Super Bowl in his second year, and he went to the NFC Championship last year. Then they probably would have went to the Super Bowl. He's incredible. So I think we need to slow down and pump the brakes on the shit talking towards Brock Purdy because he can start on my team any day of the week. I love what he's made of, and he continues to show why the Niners believe in him so much. Flipping sides, going to the quarterback for the Lions, Jared Goff. Now, I think Jared Goff has been undersold throughout his career. He had a terrible rookie season, but then McVay comes in and just uses what he's good at. And Jared Goff is an incredibly accurate passer who can layer any throw. And, he's not going to break tackles and scramble and, throw darts on the run. But he also is a top 10 quarterback who, they're not paying that much now. But they have a decision to make. Like, in the league, the way it's evolving now, where you have such mobile and dynamic playmakers at the quarterback position that can improvise, he's not one of them. And it's been great only paying him $25 million a year, but they're going to enter contract negotiations since he's in the upcoming last year of his contract. He's going to want $40 million. And quite frankly, he has earned it. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 NFC Championship games. He consistently wins and plays at a fairly high level. I would say if Dak's going to get 40, Jared Goff should get 40. But now that handicaps your team in the future because, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to need a new contract. They've got a couple offensive linemen that are due for payday. And, their safety, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he's a good player. And they should go out and probably sign another edge rusher and definitely a corner. And so the Lions have a legit decision to make. Do you let Jared Goff play into his last year and you take like a Bo Nix or somebody in the second round, or J.J. McCarthy there in Detroit from Michigan? Let him sit for a year and develop and then move forward with him? They got some questions to answer. So, final thoughts on this game. Is Brandon Ayuk their best receiver on the team? Because obviously he put up the numbers. And I remember a few years ago, there was like a slight debate on whether or not Brandon Ayuk was a bust because he had, some drop passes, some fumbles. It's clear that he is a legit number 1 receiver. I mean, he's one of the best route runners. He kind of looks like a skinnier Devontae Adams. He has incredibly soft hands, and he can stretch the defense, and he makes such tough catches. And feels like every time it's like 3rd and 8 or more, they run a 10-yard out, and he toe taps it first down. They have so many weapons on that team. I don't know how they haven't won the Super Bowl multiple years in a row. And now you get 2 weeks. You get to rest up McCaffrey, get to rest up Debo, and the rest of that team. Like, the Niners are trending towards very healthy at the perfect time. Like, this 2-week, there's no doubt, in my opinion, this 2-week buffer period for the Super Bowl benefits the Niners more than it does the Chiefs. With the physical brand of football they play, they're beat up, it seems like, every week, and they continue to dominate. But now you get 2 weeks to kind of reset, get healthy. Like, you're going to come into this game full force. And so, final thoughts. I cannot stand poor coaching. I don't think anybody can. There's a reason Belichick and Brady have 6 Super Bowls. It's not just because Brady would carve up defenses. Bill was incredibly good at clock management. And when the Lions ran that ball on 3rd down and goal, and they didn't get it, they had to use a timeout, which at that moment ended the game for them. I was saying it in my house, flipping out. What the hell are you doing? Especially if you're going to go for it on 4th down instead of take the field goal to make it a touchdown game. Why are you running it? You're trying to catch him off guard. It's like, no, trying to catch him off guard. Like, you got to throw the ball. You got to save those timeouts. It's understandable if you only had 2 and running the ball and using a timeout doesn't make a difference because the only hope you had was to recover an onside kick. They could have tried for the onside kick, and then also if they didn't get it, stop them on 3 downs, get the ball back with like 40 seconds to go, and all they needed was a field goal. I thought it was so terrible. And Ben Johnson is now up for head coaching jobs. Looks like he's going to be the Commanders coach. And, obviously every play call has got to go through the head coach. So Dan Campbell could have taken over and said no. Surprised he didn't, so you got to give him some fault. And ultimately the most because he's the head coach. But that's a question I'm asking. If I'm Adam Peters, who's the new GM of Washington, what were you thinking, bro? Like, you have 2 downs. You have Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're telling me not one of those 4 guys can get open on a pass play at the 2-yard line? I mean, all you got to do is run a little zig route. And then the play before that, or no, this wasn't on the goal line. This was earlier in the game. You roll out to the right, and Jared Goff is not a great on-the-run passer. And you constrict him to one side of the field, and you end up having to throw it away. Like, what are these play calls, man? Like, you guys have been incredibly good down at the goal line all year. I don't understand running the ball in that situation, because now you've just handicapped yourself into recovering an onside kick that nobody gets. I mean, what, we've seen 2 this year? So I thought that was a terrible coaching decision, and I'm sure it's one they regret. Not quite sure the thought process in it. Obviously, yeah, I know they have the confidence that, well, we're going to punch it in. We've dominated on the ground all game. It's like, well, yeah, but just because you've done that, look on the other side of that ball. You got Chase Young, you got Eric Armstead, you got Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and freaking Nick Bosa. It's like there's a high chance that one of those guys is going to shed the block and make a tackle. So I'm sure Lions players, coaches, and fans are sick to their stomach. I was even a little bit, because, you're so close, and that game was yours for the taking, and you choked it away. They didn't just outplay you, you choked. And their whole mantra for this whole offseason and coming into this year was salty. And I can't imagine that they've been saltier than how they are right now. So maybe it's good for them, to continue to develop character. You can't, scoff at the season they've had. It's been incredible. They got 2 playoff wins. They hadn't had one since 91. They hadn't had a division title since 93. They hadn't made the NFC Championship since 57. So you got to tip your hat to them. Great year. But it feels like it's got a little asterisk because of how close you were to the Super Bowl. So, even though they choked, it kind of gets lost that the Niners came out in the second half and they took that game. So, now we got a Super Bowl rematch 4 years ago. This was actually my girlfriend and I's first Super Bowl that we watched together. And at that time, she wasn't a Chiefs fan, so I loved her more. But, it's going to be a fun matchup. Patrick Mahomes is playing at the best of his abilities in this postseason. The Niners, do they now carry the confidence that they just found in that second half, which we saw all through the middle of the season? Nobody's better than them when they're playing with full swagger. And it's like, did they catch a little bit of that in the second half to now carry into the Super Bowl? So can't wait for that. And, Lions and Ravens, better luck next year. They've got a lot of building blocks to go off of. Things I'm looking for in the upcoming Super Bowl is obviously the Chiefs' defense against the Niners' offense. They've been dominant all year long, and they really solidified themselves today against the Ravens. The pressure's on their defense more than it is their offense. It's like, hey, you've gotten us here. One more game. And for the Niners, Kyle Shanahan, dude, you got to be on it in this game. Get the playoff jitterbug out of your system over these past 2 games and start calling plays that you can. And when you are on, nobody's better than you. And can't wait to see it. Down there in Las Vegas, obviously Dome Stadium. It's going to be good weather. I'd expect a physical battle, and may the best man win. Can't wait to dive into it more. And throughout the next week or two, we'll be coming up and talking about certain matchups, what the Niners can exploit, what the Chiefs can exploit, and then other developing news around the NFL. And side note on some Patriots football, a little off topic, but we gotta throw it in there. It looks like they are gonna hire DeMarcus Covington as their DC, which is great because you need to retain him. He's been the bright spot of that team and coaching staff over the past couple years. So excited for them. Obviously, like we talked about the other day, Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers. Excited to see that matchup. Maybe we get a Jim and John AFC Championship. But for right now, tip your hats to the Chiefs and tip your hats to the Niners. They've had incredible seasons, and they go on now to the Super Bowl. And, we're getting football at its finest. The best player in the league against the best roster in the league colliding in a Super Bowl rematch. So, can't wait to watch it. Going to be a little depressing not having football on Sunday, having to wait 2 weeks for the Super Bowl, but tons of stuff that we could cover in between. So, with that being said, guys, have a good night. Can't wait to get back on here and talk to you more. Hit me down in the comment section. Let's talk some football and enjoy your week. I'll talk to you guys.